got a great session today. For all of you that have key boxes and kiosks, I think you'll get a lot of value out of the content that Joan's going to be covering. And we're going to be focusing on understanding and managing your key control and kiosk system. So, as we get into this every month, just a couple of minor things before we begin. Again, I think a lot of you have been with us before, so this is a monthly knowledge series that we produce. It's always the same time of the month, so you can plan on it. So it's always the third Wednesday of the month from 2 to 3 Eastern. We genuinely appreciate any feedback that you give us in terms of what you'd like to see, in terms of topics covered. So please, oh please, do tell us, what's of interest to you in terms of making you more efficient or better at managing your FleetCommander environment and your fleet. At the end of the session, you'll find that there is a QR code that you can scan, and we really would like to get your feedback. You'll also be able to scan that once you get the deck download tomorrow. We do record the webinar, as you've seen, and as I just mentioned a minute ago, the content will be available tomorrow via SharePoint, so we'll communicate that out to you. And lastly, your mic is muted during the webinar, so to prevent any unwanted noise, that's done automatically. In terms of asking questions, for those of you that are familiar with Teams, you can click to show the conversation in the top, in the top ribbon. And then once you do that, you can see that you've got a way where you can ask your question. We would ask that you please tell us who you are and where you're from. That kind of helps us, from a question and from a triaging standpoint as well. Okay. And with that, as I mentioned, today's agenda is going to be understanding and managing your key control and kiosk system. So, John, with that, take it away.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the introduction. And as always, we appreciate everyone attending our monthly workshop Wednesday. I certainly enjoy putting these presentations together and enjoy my time spending with you to help you learn a little bit more about your FleetCommander system. And in this instance, we're going to be looking at how FleetCommander works with our key control system. We'll today be looking at the basics of key control and kiosks, just in case if there may be a few of y'all in the that are here with us today or watching the video after the fact that may not have key control currently, but are considering that. You'll have a basic understanding of our system, and also be able to understand how it benefits you with your fleet operation. We'll take a look at some of the feature elements of the key control system. Along with that, special key control layouts where you can modify how the kiosk looks in regards to the messaging that you share with your users as they interact with the system. We'll also look at some of the configurations and where to find them. These are not necessarily the configurations that people are going to notice, but it's how they function with the system behind the scenes. And also for this workshop Wednesday, I reached out to our support team and our implementation team, kind of get their advice and also some of the tips and tricks that they want to communicate with y'all in using the key control system. And then we'll close out with any questions that you might have entered into the chat. And also, Joe or Kathy, if you might be able to share the link to the survey in the chat, that might be helpful. We do have that available at the end of the presentation too. And as Joe said, we definitely invite your feedback because these sessions are built around your needs on that. So with all that being said, let's jump right into this in regards to the basics of key control and the kiosks. With our key control system, with the kiosk and the key box, it really is the interface that allows you to take full advantage of FleetCommander's automation. It places the responsibility of dispatch and that action into the hands of your end users. That way that you can be focused on other functions within and needs at your fleet. How that works in regards to the key box and the kiosk and just FleetCommander in general is that your end users, your drivers, your requesters can place those requests and those reservations within FleetCommander. and reserve those vehicles in advance with the intention of picking up later through the at the key control setting there at your site. Those reservations, their information is all stored and there within our hosting environment. It's secured there, and at the time that they get to the kiosk, the information is there communicating from the kiosk to our hosting environment on there. So they have the ability at that point to pick up that prearranged reservation, or even if you have it enabled, the ability to make a reservation there on site. How the kiosk works with your key control, where your key box is, that again the communication goes back through our hosting environment, so that whenever someone is checking out their vehicle, there's a signal that is sent through the server to the key box, signaling that that box should open and that the specific key that's associated with that reservation is to be released. And then the system also communicates backwards from the key box back to the kiosk, confirming that those keys have been dispatched. That's through this whole process, there's never a direct communication between the kiosk and the key box itself. It is all done through the hosting environment. Now, the two items that make up the key control system are the kiosk, which is a Windows 10 driven all-in-one machine. The model that we typically are using right now is one that's called Tagar, but we also have similar models that we use. That device utilizes what's called KeyAware software. It is a software that we add to that device in order to lock down the functions, so that somebody is not just simply going to that kiosk and being able to surf the web or do items like that. KeyAware locks that down, converts it so that the interface looks like this, where you have the ability, as we said, to check out, check in, and also do that grab and go reservations. Along with the kiosk portion, we have, of course, the key box. They come in various sizes, and the smallest ones that we offer has a maximum capacity of 8 keys, but it cycles all the way from 16 to 32, 64, and 96. That's the sizes that we offer. If you need a larger capacity than 96 keys, we do have the ability of the daisy chain 2 boxes together, but that is the maximum per site on that. In addition to these being able to store keys, there is a configuration that what we call the keys with mail slots. The mail slots there allow you to store like fleet cards or a small wallet of information within the system. It does reduce the overall key capacity of those boxes. As you can see here, that 96 key chassis actually would only allow for 56 keys with mail slots at that point, and you can see how that reduces each of these particular boxes. The one that I'm showing here uses the 16 key chassis, and it reduces that down to a maximum of 12 keys with mail slots. And so this is how is what it's going to look like inside whenever someone goes to the key box. There is, of course, a door that locks these things in place on that, and you can see that through these various setups that that you can choose to have your key box in your kiosk. This is the indoor installations. There's the standard wall mount that you see at the top left there. There's also desk placement. You can do that. That's not recommended just because that box then is, the key box itself is not secured in any fashion at that point if it's just sitting on desk, but certainly can do that if that's if your environment demands that. There's also, we've seen some custom cabinets that have been done. They're really nice. These were fabricated by the company itself. And the same with the custom kiosk stand. There's just a really nice look on that. One that we saw just recently too is you can actually mount it to a pole, as is indicated here. So there's some various options that you have for indoor. For outdoor, you have the ability to place that outside in a environmentally controlled box that stores both the key box and the kiosk within it. Of course, we'd want to have that also not standing by itself, but maybe under an awning as shown here. One really nice thing is if you have the ability, though, it's kind of a combination of the indoor-outdoor. This is a kiosk and key box was placed within a foyer, and so that the drivers have the ability to go into an climate-controlled area 24/7, where the front door is unlocked, but the next door into further into the building is secured. So if you have that ability, that is an ideal situation there. Now, what does it look like in regards to actually processing those reservations within the key control system? Well, these screenshots here kind of step you through that process. You would go up to that kiosk, you would check on the checkout vehicle. If you're coming to get the vehicle for the first time, the system is going to prompt you to enter in a username and password, and then it's going to automatically find the reservation that is for that time frame in which you're there. If the reservation is not showing up there is an option to be able to check out by confirmation number. That's a special configuration. But once you actually access the reservation itself, you'll be prompted to click on checkout, and at that point, what will end up happening is you'll get a prompt where the kiosk is then communicating through our server to that box to check on the status of the keys. At that point, when it identifies that the key is there in the box, there's a countdown that starts. You can change that countdown through configurations on that. If you want it to be longer than, say, a minute or shorter than a minute, you certainly can do that. And it identifies here what key needs to be pulled from out of the box. The nice thing about those boxes is that there's a little green LED light that lights up right next to the key of what you're supposed to be getting. And it's only that one key that the box will activate for removal. Doesn't matter how many keys you have in there. The only one that can be taken out at that time is that one specific key that is associated with the reservation. All the others are still locked down. At that point, when you remove the key, there's going to be a signal there sent back to the kiosk that says the checkout was successful. That's the basics of the checkout. Check-in is a very similar process on that. We won't cover it at this point, but I do want to point out the grab and go and how it does. It's a little bit of a different interaction, at least with the initial screens on that. If you have grab and go set up, that is for the purpose of allowing your drivers to make a request at that time. They don't have to schedule it in advance. They walk up to the box, they need a vehicle, and they have the authorization to do so. They're able to hit this function and proceed. With the grab and go, they click on the grab and go. This screen will pop up that allows them to select the vehicle type. Once they select that, the system automatically registers that time and date as being the pickup time for departing. So the only thing that needs to be entered at that point is simply the return date and time as the primary information that is loaded at this screen. There's additional information that can be requested. That is a configuration that can be set up that way if you want to request the destination or you want to request any special information. Our support team can certainly assist you with that particular type of configuration. But ultimately, once they capture all the information that you want to capture there for the reservation, you click continue. The driver is then prompted to verify the information is correct and click checkout. At that point, they're going to get that prompt with the countdown. And once they remove the keys, they again receive that message that the checkout was successful. And the whole process can take just about 90 seconds total from start to end on that based upon the countdown that you include. So what are the benefits of the key control system that we have? We've talked about the basic usage of it, but really you want to know what is it in for you and for your fleet. Well, one, it improves your utilization. It allows vehicles to be used multiple times throughout the day, and have that vehicle there when it returns. It can go back out and be there ready for the next person to use. It ultimately will reduce your fleet size when you run your fleet in such a fashion. And Another key factor is it reduces your labor costs. Remember, we're taking the activity of handing out keys and taking keys back out of your hands and allowing that to be within your end user, your driver, to do that themselves. It reduces the ultimately personal vehicle expenses. I mean, if you have your fleet readily available, especially with grab and go at 24/7, people don't have a really, it reduces the excuses on why they can't use your system. You have them available. And if you have policies to support that they have to use the system when those vehicles are available, that again will allow you to reduce those POVs expenses. Along with that too, you were able to secure your assets. As we mentioned, with that key control system, you're only are allowed to take out one key, the key that's associated with the reservation. Yes, the door is open on the box, but you cannot physically cannot remove any of the other keys on that. So it does allow for a secured place to place those keys for your entire fleet and allow people to have access to the vehicles which they have reserved. Along with that, you ultimately, we have that 24/7 access. You've got a more accurate billing because your vehicles are able to be dispatched multiple times a day, and it also encourages your people to bring back their vehicles when they have it scheduled for. They have that access to be able to place those keys in the box. And so if you're charging by the hour, you can capture specifically by the hour what those costs will end up being, and it'll allow you to have fewer idle vehicles. Those vehicles will be used because they truly are available. Some of the feature elements of key control, in regards to what it comes out of the box, whenever you are sent your kiosk and it's set up from our implementation team, the basics of it, unless you've told us to change it ahead of time, would simply give two options: check out the vehicle, check in the vehicle. That is what automatically displays without making any changes to the configuration of the key control system. Along with that, though, your site logo, that as it appears on your FleetCommander site, appears also there at the kiosk. So that's the basic configuration, but there's so much more that you can add to the kiosk, and you may simply have these two functions and may not be aware of these additional ones I'm going to show to you, which is why I'm wanting to show them to you today. In addition to the basic checkout and check-in of reservations that were placed in advance, there is that grab and go function configuration. You turn that on, and it allows for on-demand reservations with that grab and go function. The configuration of this is through the configure site kiosk ID edit. That is where you go to make those changes. As it appears here, you'll see that the ability to enable grab and go is drilled down to the usage type. So you may have daily short-term rentals and you want people to be able to make those reservations on the go, but you may also have a seasonal rental, and with those vehicles are intended to only be used from 1 month to 6 months. And you don't with those, you can choose not to include those as grab and go, as is illustrated here within the kiosks edit. In addition to that, and when you want to always bear in mind, is that the function, the ability to check out vehicles as grab and go can be customized down to the individual person's level on that. As you can see here, within the managed user profile for my profile is activated to enable self-checkout and enable grab and go. What this means is that I have been granted the ability to go to a kiosk and check out a vehicle that's reserved there. So those reservations that were made in the past for today. And I also, if necessary, have the ability to make that grab and go. Now, if you didn't want me to have grab and go, or if you have an individual you didn't want to exclusive, or you had a person that you wanted to have exclusively have the right to have grab and go, you could certainly do that, so that you can have everybody have grab and go, or just one specific person, or a mixture of the both on that. So that's a setting that you're going to want to make sure that is set up if you are choosing to do grab and go. Along with that, also just to bear in mind in regards to the interaction with FleetCommander and reservations in general, you want to make sure that your users are set up to, as best as possible, to fully automate the system within the user profile. And this is something we covered in previous Workshop Wednesdays, but you can decide if a person is eligible for the system to assign a vehicle to them or not automatically, and also have the system approve of that person's reservation or not. And this is, in doing so, if you leave it as yes and yes for the eligible auto assign and eligible automatic approval, that means that person can go ahead and go to the system, log into FleetCommander, make a reservation, and without you touching the reservation at all, that the system will assign a vehicle to them based upon the vehicle type they requested, and it will also then automatically approve of that. And so that's what helps you fully automate your system, is how this is set up within each of your users' profile. As you see there, there's that ability to manual sign on when somebody makes reservations. It's not recommended, but there are going to be situations where you are going to want somebody to be able to pick their own vehicle. Not only does this need to be set up within the user profile, but also it needs to be set up within the vehicle profile. So whatever vehicles you're going to have as a part of that key control system, you're going to want to make sure that they are configured in the same fashion as ultimately any of your users are configured with. If there's people that are going to have the ability for manual sign and pick their own vehicles, make sure that you have that activated. Otherwise, if you want vehicles to automatically go to reservations and automatically be approved, make sure that they're clicked as such within the asset profile. And you also want to make sure within the asset profile that a vehicle is enabled for self-checkout. That again tells the system that this vehicle is something that can truly be checked out at the kiosk. Another item that related to the kiosk and key control system that you find here is the key information. This is where, with the cartridge ISD, as you see the bottom of the box there, that identifies where within the key box that key is going to be stored. That last number there, number 19, indicates the 19th slot within the key box. The information above that basically is details about that are related to the key tag. The key tag, first portion there, 101, just means that that's the number that you designated with the key tag. The description of the vehicle finds there on the key tag, and what that ends up looking like when you hit print key tag is that presents itself in this fashion. Another thing you want to keep in consideration whenever you're dealing with grab and go is that you want to make sure that vehicles are, again, are as a vehicle type, that those vehicles that are going to be in your key box, that type of vehicle, be it a small cargo van, be it a large SUV, that vehicle type, which covers maybe all your small cargo vans, be it the Ford or Chevy or whatever it may be, actually can be presented there as a group there at the kiosk. And so first of all, part of that is that you enable them for reservations so that that vehicle type can be considered. You need to also enable for grab and go if you're going to use that function. We also highly recommend that for the make checking out easier, and that you add a picture of that vehicle type, so that at the first part of the screen they'll see what type of vehicle they're getting, not the specific vehicle, but the vehicle type. And you can identify that by adding text to the picture before you upload it that says what type that is. And then also within that configuration, you want to make sure that usage type is active. So this is all portions of things that would be part of your initial configuration whenever you were implemented with our implementation team. But these are things that you also want to explore if you add and check if you're adding new vehicle types to your system, or again, if you've not used the key control system before or grab and go function before. These are things that you want to revisit. Another features that you want to take a look at and consider is reservation and policy on that. That you have the ability to cancel those reservations there on the screen. That's a section that can be added, just like we added grab and go earlier. You can add the cancel reservations for this from the main screen. That way, they if they don't want a reservation, they have the ability to let you know of that on site. And in addition to that, too, you can present your policy to your drivers. You can see here that's again under the configure site kiosks and activate policy. What that looks like is it presents the same policy that is presented in FleetCommander there from the welcome screen, the left column where it says policy. That policy that's displayed there is then pulled and displayed here. Another item and feature that you might consider using is using an RFID reader at the kiosk. There are numerous benefits to using this function, and this is something that has to be set up in addition to the standard setup with a kiosk. It ultimately allows for a speedier login at the kiosk. It can be used with most RFID proximity cards. It definitely helps out and it reduces the wait time. It is especially useful in situations where passwords may be extremely long or extremely difficult to remember. And it just ultimately improves your customer experience and provides a seamless experience to them, which is what you're going to want to present to them so that they want to come back and use the system again. It does, however, require either using our native login with FleetCommander, the same login that you would use if you go to your desktop and log into FleetCommander, or if there's a special sign-on with OAuth or LDAP. And those, any other type of login, we can't really work with that. That being said, you can choose two different ways to interact with the login procedure using the RFID reader. The two-factor there on the right-hand side, it will, when the card is swiped, it's going to recognize the user and have that filled in the sign-in for that individual, but it still requires them to enter in their own password. If you're trying to simplify things, the two-factor at least requires an additional authentication on that, and by the sense that they have to know their password, but it doesn't really speed up the process too much on that. What it does is that single factor authentication, where it will, once they swipe their card, it takes them straight to the reservation that they have standing on that. With RFID readers, we do now have within the system the capability of having your drivers and your users swipe their RFID card for the first initial time and register it within FleetCommander, rather than them bringing it to your office and having you have to type it in their user profile. When you activate the self-register RFID, then they swipe it and they'll get a message that say that they can continue to and make a reservation, and that will be again stored. That information will be stored within FleetCommander within their user profile. All these changes are done through the advanced configurations. If you are to make any of these changes, interested in making any of those, make sure that you contact our support staff for the RFID reader, and also for the ability that you have to check out vehicles for somebody else. That's something that we mentioned earlier. You do have that ability to do that. And I'll show what that looks like in just a moment, but the configuration for all those are in the same spot. But again, these type of configurations, we advise that you work with our support team in order to get that taken care of. What does it look like if you're checking out a vehicle for someone else? Well, you would go to the system, you would either swipe your card or enter your username and password, and you would go to click check out vehicle. At that point, it's not going to find a reservation for you because the reservation is not in your name. So what it'll end up doing is you'll be prompted to check out via the confirmation number. So that person that's using the system is going to have need to come prepared with the confirmation number that was given to the other person, and they will click on that, enter in the confirmation number. There is a pop-up menu that is there provided if there's not a keyboard on site in order to enter that number, and then at that point they'll be able to check out. Now you also have the ability to check in a vehicle for someone else, and in doing that, it makes use of the key number that is attached to the key that within the system. So when they click check in, they'll be presented with this this screen, and what is being asked for again is the key number as was displayed during the checkout process, where it throws that number. In this case, it was key number 12. That is what needs to go into the section here. It's not the reservation number, it's not the vehicle number, it's not the license plate. So that's something that you're going to want to make sure to communicate with your users if they do choose, if you choose to make this function available for checking vehicles out and checking vehicles in for somebody else. How would you communicate that? Well, that comes down to some of the special layouts that we provide. In addition to the blue buttons here to process the reservations, you have the ability to make some changes here. You know, you can use the header, which in this case would actually appear above the logo that comes by default. The header sits above that. I wasn't able to get that changed for here, but you can remind people in regards to policies there in the header. You can also put in information about your organization or any other information you would like to there within the footer, and also give instructions and guidance there at the checkout process. So this would be a good place to talk about that. You know, for checking vehicles, you must enter the key number, not vehicle number, not license number. It's very flexible on making those changes. And making changes to this is found within the configure layouts kiosk, configure site kiosk layout. And you might remember we did early on in Workshop Wednesday a session in regards to changing layouts. The process is very much the same. If you're interested in learning how to do that, you can reference some of the material that we're going to have linked here at the end of the presentation. In addition to the standard layout, we do have custom attract screens. So while the kiosk is sitting idle, it cycles through some screensavers. There are default ones that come out of the box, but you do have the ability to make changes to that. Some of the changes might be putting in your name of your company with your branded images. Another excellent way of using that is again to display information or policies and notifications on that. The process in doing this, it will cycle through until it's time for it to be used, and by touching the screen, that will activate and send the screen back to the original layout. What you see here is where you actually load within the kiosk itself those attract screens, and this is something that is there, but this is cycling back here for some reason. Well, I had a message here that popped up with big red, and it said, please contact SC support if you want to make these changes. Those are, again, the type of portion where you want to interact with our team just to make sure that those are done properly. Another special layout that you can see as is indicated here is you can load videos to the kiosk. It makes use of that welcome text area that we pointed out just a few moments ago. You can use this to help give some information, help train the person in regards to using the system or policies. And we recommend that you utilize resources that you may have at your hand. If you're part of a a school, you might be able to reach out to student organizations, to the communications department, just internal groups that might be able to create a video specifically for your use that you could post here. And the posting of that, again, is through that configuration, site kiosk layout, and the welcome main menu text. This is what it looks like if we're to go to that section of FleetCommander, and you can add it there within the WYSIWYG for that we provide there. And again, if you want more information on how to go through this process, we have a Workshop Wednesday recording for that. More configurations. These are those configurations that are kind of how it operates behind the scenes. First of all, foremost, this portion of it, don't change without contacting and consulting with our support team. If you do this, it's going to you'll start hearing it from your drivers pretty quickly that the system's not working, and it's because this information got changed. If there may be situations where this does need to be changed, if you're moving the kiosks or to different places, those make a difference. So definitely don't change without contacting support. But the other items on here, pretty much you can make those at your own determination. Checkout buffer, this is what determines how many minutes ahead of their scheduled pickup time that somebody can come and actually still get access to the reservation. This one with a checkout of 60 minutes allows them to pick it up to an hour before they actually said they were going to get there. That does cause some problems, which we'll talk about in a moment on there, but this is where you would determine that. Ideally, 15 minutes, 30 minutes max is really what you would want to do. And we'll discuss that further just shortly. In addition to that, FleetCommander does have the ability to, I thought I fixed these. Something is going screwy here. We have the ability, though, within FleetCommander to print out your travel sheets. As you can see here, as if you have a printer on site, you click on that, you determine what the print form factor needs to be, and in doing so, they would, with that printer on site, you can have that print up and give those your drivers that information. In addition to that, there is the ability to use a virtual keyboard. If you don't have with the touch screen, if you don't have a physical keyboard, you would activate the virtual keyboard here, which is that's what it looks like, similar to that pad that we used earlier for entering. Something's happened here, Joe. All my fancies are going away. So we have the cancellation. As we talked earlier in regards to canceling from the main menu, you can allow for cancellations from checkout. If you want to do that, we don't recommend being able to check out, though, in the moment when making a reservation. People end up gaming the system, and if they do that. You have the ability to change the default settings for your grab and go. If you do have multiple usage types that you're going to allow for grab and go, if you know there's one that's going to be used more than others, you can have that presented right up front with the as they make their grab and go reservation. And also you have the ability to have a default with that default usage type, we're showing here. I'll just move on here in regards to grab and go. Another function, the grab and go, allowing for that, as we mentioned earlier, is based upon the usage type itself. So this is where you're going to go and make those changes, and that's what it would look like when you make the click on that for the pictures. With grab and go, you can specify, if you allow people to make their own, select their own vehicles, and the specific vehicles, that's an option. Again, we don't recommend that because it will end up being cherry picking vehicles, and they're not going to be able to utilize those vehicles in the right fashion, where they cycle through based upon the last one, first one in, last one out kind of concepts to keep those vehicles rolling. Some of the other configurations to consider with the checkout configuration is auto sign if a vehicle is not available. This is something that is really important, especially when we start talking about the expanding the time that a person can pick up a vehicle up before their designated time, and also because this will allow, if that vehicle is not on site, it has not arrived yet, by clicking on this particular setting, it's going to present an alternate vehicle to them. So the system pops up a message that will direct them to what to do in that situation. And then we have also the ability to prevent checkout if a reservation, if a person's who has a reservation, if their license has expired, if it's suspended or it's not validated on that. Along with that too, you have the ability to send out an email to the driver that indicates that they have confirming that they've checked out their vehicle successfully. If you have that printer set up, as we mentioned earlier, you have the ability to have that auto print for their convenience, and that's what that looks like. Again, with the check-in process and the configurations to consider is you can actually send them an email when the vehicle is checked back in. You can require information to be collected, such as the parking space, the mileage. They're prompted to be able to enter in their mileage, which is what you're going to want to do to keep an accurate record of your mileage. You can, however, if you have telematics with the GPS, have it set up where that's going to be what it fills in automatically, and you can determine how far back you allow for a legit odometer reading. In this case, it would end up being 60 minutes on that. And also, as it jumps back here to, you can require collecting fuel on that. This portion is what I feel is probably one of the more important aspects of settings that you're going to want to consider using, and it's the require comments at check-in. The system will automatically present a dialog box for them to enter comments on that, and anything that's entered into there is going to be communicated with you via email as an admin. However, you can make those them enter in a comment and require them to fill that out, and that's where this configuration comes into play. So not simply that you're going to get an email if they happen to put in a comment, but you can tell them that they have to make a comment, especially if it's in dealing with vehicles that have damage or items like that. And how you can help communicate that portion is within this box here, where you can give them guidance. You can put in there, if you have any problems or concerns with your vehicle or your reservation, to express that. And so then combined with that message and the require comments, it will actually allow you to have a better understanding of what is the condition of that vehicle and if there's action that needs to be taken. Well, that is the portion of which I put together. This is me as part of our company. This picture was taken back in our all hands meeting, which means everybody has the opportunity to get together there at our in Chantilly. This was back in July. But in addition to this, I did reach out to our support team. I wanted to hear what they thought in regards to questions that oftentimes arise or things that they have helped assist people with. And so they sent me a lot of them. I'm going to present just a few of them as we finish out this part of the presentation. First of all, foremost, logging the serial numbers to those keys. And printed in each of the keys that secure your vehicle keys into the key box, each of those keys have a unique serial number. And if you are sent with your key control system to set two of those keys, one that goes in the box, one that ends up being stored in reserve. If you happen to lose both of those and you don't have those numbers written down, you basically have to drill out the lock out of the key box in order to use that slot again, because we have no idea what those numbers are unless you record those, because those keys come directly from the manufacturer. So support recommends that you log and keep a track of those serial numbers. And that can be done in one or two ways. Within the system, within configure site settings, kiosks, and the cartridge, the cartridge tab here, you see that there is this column of serial numbers. By clicking on the icon to edit, it takes you into that record, that slot, and you can update the number that fills in by default. In everybody's system by default, it fills in this SN1, SN2, SN3, SN4. No matter which system you have, everybody for each kiosk has this number by default. Well, we encourage you to go in and change that number to reflect the actual one that's imprinted on that key. In doing so, you can have a record within FleetCommander of those serial numbers, so that if you happen to lose both of them, you can just simply log into the system, look up that information, and you'll have it on hand. Another way of doing that would be to enter it in Excel. Our implementation team does send out, as part of the key control system, this Excel file, this template, and I'm going to make that available within the share folder with today's presentation. So you can log it one or two ways. Important thing, make sure to log it. Another thing also is make sure that you have your backup keys in a place that's where you and your staff knows where they're at. New implementations, newer clients have been receiving a folder like the one that's displayed here. I've recently, at one of our clients, solved this particular setup. This is not a agile key box system. This is simply a dedicated self-contained unit where a person can go in and retrieve their keys from this box here. So whatever your system is for your backup keys, make sure that you have a place that you know where they're at and you can get to them. Another tip that our staff says is make sure to communicate the buffer times that you have set up within the system. As we showed earlier, the first area here, the checkout buffer, this dictates how much before a reservation's start time that somebody can get their vehicle at the kiosk. If this number and the end buffer, which is set up within for all reservations, are too close together, you're going to have a problem, because the end buffer here says a reservation cannot be scheduled to start X amount of minutes before the end of an earlier reservation. And so as those reservations are accumulating, if you have a reservation that is scheduled for to return at 1:45, and you have a pickup at 2 o'clock for the next reservation, but you're allowing for that person to with the 2 o'clock reservation to pick up their reservation 60 minutes ahead of time, they're going to arrive at the box, and the system's going to say their vehicle's not there. Well, if you do have it registered, as we showed earlier, configured to allow for the system to assign a new vehicle to it, that'll help out in the situation, but really making sure that these are configured in a logical fashion is what's going to help the most on that, and it'll save you some heartaches of having to answer questions on why is my vehicle not here. Another tip, implement RFID readers. Kathy, who's on the call with as far as CS team. She's new to Agile. She was with Iowa State University. Was we were going through this, she told me I waited too long to implement this, and so support says do it. Remember the benefits of it. I mean, it allows for a better interaction and experience for your end users to speed up that process. So take Kathy's advice, do it, implement it if you can. Remember, it does require native logins, OAuth, and LDAP. Another tip: please communicate any planned outages, moves, and any changes that might involve your kiosk and your key control system. Oftentimes, we will receive messages our support team through how our system's configured, where we get notifications when kiosks and key boxes are down and not operating, and we'll reach out to you and work with you. But if you let us know ahead of time that you know that that there's going to be a power outage because the local power company is going to cut it off for the next 3 days, we'll already have that and know that when we receive those alerts, what's going on. So keep them informed on that. Any type of changes, if you are going to move the box to another place, let us know. If you're going to make any of those major changes to the configuration, let them know. And then finally, I'm not going to run through all these, but Ian from our support team gave me 4 troubleshooting tips in regards to how within what happens with the kiosk and 2 what happen with the key box itself. Some of you might experience the white screen of death where there's nothing on the kiosk. Here's some troubleshooting tips that you can refer back to after the session. If there's messages that pop up about there's a communication error with the key box, this is something that you can take a look at to try to get those up and running without having to reach out to support on that. And the same with the key box, with the problems with being stuck with the LCD, and also how to replace batteries there with the key box. That is what I had for my presentation, and we are just about wrapping this up now. Any questions that anyone had?
John, we had 2 questions, but I think you covered it.
Okay.
The first one was Kayla, and she was asking about the video, which we had previously discussed. And Kathy said she had a couple of examples, so we'll post those to the share, and that way everybody can take a look at the examples. But fundamentally, it's best if you make your own video. That way it really represents your site, because all kiosk sites have the potential to be different. So that way it's very specific to yours. And then the last one had to do with Denise. Denise asked a question about they were having an issue where somebody went to check out a key and they couldn't get it. So they went 10 minutes before they were trying to get it, and it wouldn't let them check it out until 10 a.m. So you had covered the buffer time. So, I've asked her to just recheck the buffers on each side, and then if there's still an issue there, to reach out to the support guys.
Yes. And what can oftentimes happen, as actually Doreen from our support staff mentioned, is that sometimes people, they get there, they return their vehicle and they don't put the keys back in, and the car could be sitting right there on the lot, and somebody is scheduled to pick up that vehicle within the next 30 minutes, and if the keys are not returned, it's the same thing as if the car is not there. So that may be a situation that you're facing. If you know that the vehicle has been returned, you can go in and you can check the vehicle in there remotely. But again, if the keys are not on hand, you're going to have to get down there and hand those out to that person with the spare set of keys.
And it looks like Kathy put a link to the video in the chat. So if you folks have access to the chat, you can click on that and pull it. We'll also include a copy in the folder when we share this.
Excellent.
Make it a little bit easier. But that's all we've got. Are there any other questions that anybody has about this? Well, I think so, John. Great job. Thanks again for that. As we talk about in every session, really, we're here to help you. So our job is to make sure that you get the value out of FleetCommander in terms of managing your fleet. So again, as you think about your journey, and how your fleet may be transitioning from one phase to a next, we're certainly here to help you, with any of the questions you've got, either operationally or strategically. So that may be something, in terms of thinking about, new features and functions. We've talked a number of times about total cost of ownership and really getting the right kind of the fully burdened fleet model out there, and that's what that'll help you do. We've got lots of folks within Agile, that have very extensive fleet industry experience. So years and years and years of that. If you need refresher training, again, for folks that are new to your organization or even your existing staff, we provide that on a very regular basis. It would be interesting to know from folks attending whether or not you think that's something that we should focus more on in the coming months. I know that we do that typically in the mid-month of the quarter. So next month we'll be doing a training block, and then so that'll be something that's coming out shortly. So anything around the site or the staff training, we're free to, we're certainly happy to help you there. And when you think about your fuel imports, if it is something that you're trying to get all of your information in one place, getting fuel into the system is pretty easy. We support a wide variety of imports. A lot of you folks use WEX, and that's a very common import to bring in. And then think about, billing. So, at the end of the day, there's nothing like accountability when you have to pay the bill. So we've got 5 standard algorithms that you can choose from. So that may be something you want to think about. And then lastly, it's all about making your operation more efficient. So, while we know that a lot of folks use staff to kind of dispatch keys, kiosks and key boxes are certainly a very cost-effective means to bringing your, streamlining your fleet and making your operation truly 24/7, 365. Next. And then, getting into things that we do. So, for everybody on the call, we've got agilefleet.com, which is your one place for online resourcing. And again, Mike Hicks, who's our, head of marketing, he's been spending lots and lots of time redoing our website. So please make a visit, take a look at it. There's a lot of resources on there that'll help you out, from webinar, user groups, peer sharing, case studies, white papers, and more. So, please take a look at it. And I know that Mike would be curious to get your feedback about how it looks and what we can do more to help you there. Again, one of the things that we do is publish a fleet management blog, excuse me. So we try and make sure that we communicate to you the latest trends and news on fleet management, and how we, and how Agile Fleet can help you, or how FleetCommander can help you in that changing environment. If you are university focused, Kathy holds, quarterly webinars that talk about, things related to higher ed. So please attend that. And lastly, the user conference. This year's user conference is going to be in Knoxville, Tennessee. And it's going to be this 27th, 28th of September. So we're going to be publishing the details very, very soon. So look for that, and we look forward to seeing you there. And lastly, getting into Workshop Wednesday. So, next month we're getting, talking about, typical login, end user login issues. So, that should be very beneficial to a lot of folks on the call today. So, we look forward to seeing you there. And again, the agenda is really, forecast out. So we hope that there's a lot of topics in here that'll help you as you manage your FleetCommander environment, and different things that you can do with the fleet operationally. And then for all of you that haven't been able to attend the workshops consistently, there's a link of, here's a link to, or I should say, here's all the content that we covered previously. So there's an awful lot of things that we've done over the last year. Some great content here that talks about everything from, customizing and using your emails, to updating your welcome pages, to managing your policy, to talking about advanced configuration and troubleshooting of emails, getting into total cost of ownership, dispatching, and user experience, as well as a couple of product overviews. So all great content, all available to you, as an Agile client. And lastly, please tell us what you think. I mean, really, this works because you tell us what you're interested in seeing and where you need help. So please let us please tell us how we can help you moving forward. If you don't give us anything, if you don't give us feedback, then we're at the whim of, developing our own content. So thanks again for, sharing with us, part of your day. And we look forward to seeing you next month.